A strange and mysterious bog becomes a center of pure terror in Moloch, a Shudder original written and directed by Nico Vandenbrink, who's done shorts as well as a movie called Avonland that came out a few years ago. Also written by Don or Dan Baker. I'm not exactly sure. It's 2 A's in Dan and 2 K's in Baker. Could be Don Baker. I apologize if I mispronounce the name. They did some shorts as well as a movie called Quality Time. And since it's set in the North Netherlands, it is in Dutch with some English. So break out the subtitles, and also I will attempt to pronounce some of the actors' names as best as possible. There's Sally Harmsen, who played Betriek. She's the main character and actually did a really, really good job in this. There's also Annette Block, who's Elska, the mother. And then there's Sonia Marcoessa Hamner. And then there's Jonas, who's Alexander William, and then there's little girl Hannah. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce her name. I'm pretty certain I screwed up those names, and I do apologize. But yes, it is set in the North Netherlands. It's a bit of a folk tale, folk horror, and it's really, really atmospheric. And since it's a Shudder original, it can go one of 2 ways. It could be really, really good, either on the entertaining or atmospheric side, or it could be absolutely shit. In this movie, basically, there is a bog that has a mysterious past, and there's a house where Beatrix sees that her dad and mother are living on the property, and they're just, they're just trying to live, trying to have fun. But unfortunately, this bog has a bit of a sinister past to it, and you really don't want to be out at night. And there's also this archaeological site headed by Jonas and Sonia, and they have uncovered some people that are perfectly preserved even though they're a number of years old, and then weird shit starts to go down. So before I get into spoilers in a couple minutes, I will say that as far as atmospheric and well-shot horror movies, this is pretty goddamn good. In fact, I would call this movie great. It is slow burning. It takes a bit. It's a bit bizarre. You really have to pay attention. If you look away, unless you speak Dutch, you're not going to have a goddamn clue what these people say. There's a little bit of English, and that's not the worst thing. I prefer movies in their original language because when they're dubbed, it just doesn't seem right. And in this movie, Beatrix basically witnessed something terrible that happened when she was younger back in 1991. And then smash cut 30 years later, she's got her own kid. She lived in New York for a while, but her husband died, and she came back to, her home, her ancestral country. Almost said ancestral, but nevertheless, now you can't, unhear it. You can't unhear ancestral as ancestral. Nevertheless, back to the actual seriousness of this movie, Jonas forms a bit of a bond with Beatrix. He's fascinated by her, and more, layers get peeled off of this thing. It turns out that there are some, weird things happening. As this archaeological site, as, more stuff gets uncovered, people start acting weird. Crew members just start absolutely going batshit insane. One even comes to the house and terrorizes the family. And then they have to figure out what the hell's going on. But it wasn't him, it was the whispers, or these whispers, this story that's steeped in tragedy. And, there's something mysterious going on in this bog, but what could it possibly be? And then a story is brought up, a certain legend. I will save it for the spoilers. But basically this legend unveils a whole lot, and you find out, oh shit, there's some really, really weird stuff going on. And maybe you shouldn't have brought your kid back, because now some weird, goddamn fucked up shit is happening. And no child, no adult, no human being should have to see. I wasn't so sure how to take this movie at first, but I appreciate how atmospheric and well shot it was and how good the performances were. Again, Sally Harmsen does a very, very good job here. And the guy who played Jonas was good as well. And the young woman that played Sonia, she was good as well. And the kid who played Hannah, she did a very good job. And the parents, they did good as well. But it turns out in this movie, things are not what they seem, and basically things just get all fucked up and weird, and then it really kicks it into gear in the third act, where, yeah, you probably could see it coming, but the way it was done, it may have seemed a little rushed to some people, but if you pay attention, it really was carefully crafted and ended in the right way where it made the most sense. It tied into the beginning, and you're like, okay, the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's what I gathered from, this movie. Obviously, there's different ways that this could be interpreted, but mostly it's a story about family, but also ghostly folklore. And the shots in the bog and the nighttime scenes were beautifully done. Very, very good stuff. Sure, sometimes some characters make some stupid decisions, such as the life of a horror movie. And doesn't matter what type of horror, suspense horror, slasher, doesn't matter. People are going to make dumb decisions because that's horror movie 101. But it is well crafted, it is well acted, and is very, very well done, all things considered. Is it the most perfect movie? No, but I am going to definitely end up giving it a high grade, because for a low budget movie like this, it worked. They made the most of it. They mainly centered in just a couple locations, and they didn't make it boring. And by the time you got to the conclusion, you're like, oh shit, all this stuff, all these little hints and everything, they actually paid off. We're not going to get a sequel. We're not going to get Moloch 2, Electric Moloch Boogaloo, but Moloch basically ties into a certain folk tale that, I will talk about here in spoilers. But it's really, really good. I encourage you guys to check it out. So I am going to get into spoilers here. It's on Shudder. Absolutely check it out if you get a chance. But 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Okay, so basically Betriek ended up witnessing something where she heard screams and a whole bunch of weird stuff happening and blood dripped down the wall. And it was so goddamn weird and freaky. And then smash cut, like I said, 30 years later, she comes back and she's trying to acclimate back to the life. She speaks more English than Dutch, but you obviously don't lose that, that mentality of being able to speak the first language you learned. And she's attached, she's a bit distant, but also attached to her parents. But then what ends up happening is Jonas is, doing this excavation, easy for me to say. And what ends up happening is, well, it turns out that these bodies are digging up actually tie into the legend of Fyke. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it turns out that there was this evil lord and his wife. And basically what ended up happening is he ended up falling for this one servant girl, got her pregnant, and the wife got upset, like, oh no, it was the girl using her witchy powers, and she was labeled a witch and she was cursed and she was going to be burned at the stake. And then what she did, just before that happened, she prayed to a god. The god that answered, though, was Moloch, the child sacrifice god. Why is there a child sacrifice god? I don't really want to know that. But what ends up happening is she is going to be burned at the stake. She, throat is slashed vertically up like this. It's like the Italians are doing this now. But anyway, what ends up happening is Helen's throat is slashed. And Helen will curse the land because of what was taken from her. Even though she was evil, well, you still made a deal with the child sacrifice god. So he took the offspring and everything because he had no self-esteem. And people that love 90s rock are just dying laughing in the comments or rocking out to some offspring nevertheless. But what ends up happening with all this is the granddad is also, on another side thing, has a camera set up where anything that moves in front of it, it'll capture the image. Well, it turns out that all these bodies that are being excavated, well, it turns out they all had their throats slashed like this. They were all sacrificed in a certain way. Why were they sacrificed? Who were they sacrificed by? Turns out that Helen, bit of an evil bitch. And the mother, not exactly the mother. Turns out that the grandmother actually died a while ago, died 30-something years ago. But since Betriek didn't see that and was taken away, that person ain't her mother. That's the demon. That's all it was. That's all it was, all that. That's the interpretation I got, at least, from this, because things moved a little bit quickly in the third act. Even though other people were possessed by seemingly other spirits here, turns out that mother was the most evil of them. And then what ends up happening is a sacrifice. She cuts her throat. And then suddenly, the demon comes, takes over Betriek. And now this burgeoning romance that she had with Jonas, she kind of just blows it off or whatever. Earlier in the movie, she had referred to her mother stealing sugar packets from a restaurant. And that her mother always did that. And it was really just bizarre. Then what ends up happening is at the end, she's distant from Jonas, even though they had sex near the bog. No, really, on a drunken night, she just basically decided to kiss and straddle him. It was weird, really weird out of nowhere. She takes a sugar pack and saying, oh, take care of yourself, this kind of stuff. It's all right. Basically, what ends up happening is this demon took over her body. Betriek's dead, and now she's going to raise that daughter as her own. She keeps taking the offspring. The demon will keep taking the offspring of the family, steeped in tragedy, ended perfectly. At least that's how I interpreted it. If I got things wrong, please let me know in the comment. I don't really know much about the Legend of Feige. I have no idea what it is. I had to work in my head that I was pronouncing that right. I am giving this an A+. This was really, really good. I don't know if it'll end up being on my top 20 favorite movies of the year list, but this is one you absolutely need to check out. It is going to be difficult for me to talk about, all my favorite movies and not leave shit out at the end of the year, but this is something you should check out. Damn good. And for a slow burn horror movie, ties in well. Great atmospheric shots. Great acting once again. Sally Harmson, who played Betriek, she was fucking terrific. Hope to see her in more movies. But yeah, A+. It was really good. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rentlin. I'll see you soon.